Good afternoon, everyone. Today, our topic is to introduce Trados Studio. We're going to cover the following content. First, we will introduce the major technology of Trados Studio. For example, translation memories, term bases. And then we will take a look at the translation workflow and how to run batch tasks to pre-translate files. Also, how to use auto-suggest with machine translation. Then we will learn how to align translated documents. Trados Studio is, in essence, a computer-assisted translation tool. It was used by more than 250,000 translation professionals all over the world. Translation memory is at the center of Trados Studio. And like all translation memory tools, Trados Studio provides a range of other features as well that could be used to help users complete translation projects more easily and efficiently. So this is the overview of its major technologies. For example, translation memory is a central technology of Trados Studio. It is a bilingual database and the source sentence with target sentence are a pair of translation unit. In translation memory, we could do automatic lookup, and we can also have pre-translation. According to different matches, we have 100 matches against translation memory. We also can set fuzzy matches and context matches. Also, it can suggest a translation for entire sentences or just for fragments. It also has a function to suggest a dictionary, and it is a bilingual database as well. It will store source sentence fragment with target sentence fragments like words or expressions. And a suggestion will be given automatically while you're typing. Then it is possible to create from our translation memory. Of course, you need auto-suggest a creator, or you need to have professional addition for this function. Another technology is term-based. It is a multilingual database, and it is concept-oriented. So all synonyms will be stored in one entry, and it contains source terms and target terms. Additional information will also be given, like status, definition, context, or maybe other notes about the term. In addition, there is bilingual reference files. For example, for context match, we will use paragraph. We call it perfect match. And pre-translation, perfect match will only be available in professional edition. So the advantages of Trados is that we can reuse our previous translated fragments to ensure consistency when we use terms stored in term base. So the whole process of translation will be accelerated. Then we can reduce the costs and create access in the procedure. Now, let's take a look at workflow. We will use how to translate single file like Word file as example. The whole procedure will be like this. First, we open the document and then we add translation memory, term base, and auto-suggest dictionary. And then this file will be saved as SDLXLIFF for our translation. And then on the environment of our edit window, we can look up in translation memory, term base, and auto-suggest dictionary. So when we confirm translations, we can move to the next segment. We can also add comments, preview our translation. In this procedure, we can also check our spelling and run QA verification. Then we can save the whole translation in different formats. And then we can export our translation. So the whole procedure will be like this. We open a file for translation, and then we set up default language pairs. Then we select or create translation memory and term base, and then we perform translation under the editor environment and translate or reuse existing translation from translation memory and term base. Then we check if we need to apply formatting and then insert placeables. At last, preview our translation in the original layout, then save our translation. There are two ways to import a file for translation. The first one is to open a file from a local project or package. A second is to open a single file in a local project. For the first method, we just need to right-click on the file name in the files view and select Open for Translation. While the second method, we need to go to Welcome View, drag a file for translation. We can browse our computer. Then we need to set the default language pairs for our translation. This seminar will use one Word file as example. We'll translate it from English to Chinese. For example, once we open the file, we can see on the Welcome tab, we drag the file or browse for it, and then we select Translate Single Document because we have one Word file to translate. And then we have to create a translation memory and go through the wizard of document setting. For example, here is a wizard. We can see we need to create translation memory first, and then select language. This is a target language, so we choose Chinese. And we also tick enabled here. Of course, the first step is to name this translation memory and specify a location for this translation memory to be saved. Then we choose source language and target language, and then tick enable character-based concordance search. Then we click finish button. Then we can see this new translation memory is created and the name is shown as dimension SDLTM. Then we need to tick all the features like enabled languages, lookup penalty, concordance, and update. What we're looking at is the edit window. It's edit view. So we have navigation pane here. It can direct us to different places like work homepage, project list, files, and reports, and edit window, and translation memory. Here, what we're looking at is a term-based viewer tab. It will I'll show the terms we have added into the term base. And the red box is our edit pane for translation. This is the place where translation is happening. We can type in the content here. Here on the right side hand is a term-based window. After we translate one segment in the right side of editors panel, we can press shortcuts to move to next segment, like Control plus Alt plus Enter, or we can go to drop-down menu to choose Confirm, and then choose Confirm and move to next segment. We can see from this menu, there are different status of the segments. For example, not translated, draft, translated, translation rejected, translation approved, sign off, rejected, send off. So if we can say there is a green label, it means this segment is confirmed and we can move to next segment. We also have to create a term base for our project. This is a wizard for a term base. We go to project setting and we choose term base. Under it, since it is our first file to translate, we need to create a term base for it. So we choose term base and we click create. And we can have this term base wizard. So we create a new term base definition from scratch. And we need to give it a name. Choose languages. Then we'll find a term base named Dimension Basics was created. Also, we need to make sure enabled is clicked. Then if we want to add some term to term base, we could double click this term and its equivalent. So both of them will be added to the term base. And then we can find WHO and its translation are added into the term base. We can find it in the term base here. And then terms will be recognized in later tests once they are added into term base. There will be a red line here over the term recognized. For example, we can find a red line over WHO as it is already in the term base. It is recognized as a term here. If we want to add the translation of some term, when it is recognized, we can add it directly to our translation panel. For example, we can press Insert Term Translation button from term-based panel here. Translation results will be shown here. We can add it by this method. Here is a term recognized by system. So we press Insert Term Translation button. A translation will be given here. It will be inserted directly. So this result, the translation of it will be added. We also compress show translations here. When we press this button, the translation of WHO will be given. We need to select it and it will be added into the content. This is saved automatically. And for some placeables, it can also be considered as recognized token. It is a short piece of text enclosed in one segment that the translation memory will treat it as a single word because it is a defined format and it could be recognized as content. So they may not need translation. Therefore, they can be automatically localized by applying a translation memory. So if these are enabled as a recognized token in a translation memory, the translation memory recognizes Monday the 1st, January 1900 as one word. So they are identified in the edit window by a blue square bracket underline. This underline is only displayed when we have a translation memory open and we have to put the cursor in the segment where the recognized token is located. For example, tokens or placeable that can be recognized are days, times, numbers in numerals, markup text, measurements, acronyms, and URLs, and some alphanumeric strings, some variables or tags for marking up. These are placeables. For example, (80.1% and 5.4% are placeables. In this case, they do not need translation. So they will be identified by a blue square bracket underline. 55 meaning is also placeable here. It does not require translation as well. To quickly add translation for placeables, we can click the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+ to display the quick place drop-down list first, quick place. And we can review the available formatting, tags, placeable, and variable elements from the current source segment. So this is a quick place button. And then we can find this is a list of the placeables. We can choose one from the list and it will be inserted into the translate segment. Now let's take a look at context match. Context match refers to the result against the translation memory. It will be displayed in the translation results window, and the best result will be placed in the target segment of the document. If a context match is found in the translation memory and it will be automatically confirmed, we'll see a label CM. This label will be displayed in the segment status. So a context match is 100% match that also has context, which means it has the same preceding segment in the translation memory as it does in the document we are working on. So context match in our case means that the sentence has been translated as the beginning of a document before. So the context in the translation memory is assumed to be the same as in our example, where it is the first sentence pair. Then no editing is required for context match. For example, we can find that this fragment is labeled CM. It means it is a context match. We can find a status shown in percentage. If it is 100%, which means all the segments in the source document are translated. So we can preview our translation. We can put our cursor hover over the preview tab on the right-hand side of the application. Then the preview window will be displayed, and we can click here to generate initial preview. Then the document will be previewed in the preview window. And we can choose what a format to review it. We can preview the translation as we work. It is real-time preview. It can reflect the changes while we type. And it means the preview is updated every time a segment is confirmed. We can choose one type of format to preview it, like we can choose Microsoft Word or HTML. So the preview window will contain the content that we have translated and confirmed. Also, it will display the sourced content that hasn't been translated yet. And what you are looking at is the translation under preview in Word file. Now, if we are satisfied with translation, we can generate a translated document. We can save it as, for example, here, the format is SDL XLIFF document. We can save it if this is the final version of our translation. We can save it to a default location. And then we can choose File, Save Target As to save it, to save the final Word document. For instance, here, we can save it as a Word file to a specified location. Now, how to make use of translation memory in Trados? Suppose we need to translate a new file. It is related to the topic of the previous Word file we have translated earlier. So we can make use of the translation memory we just created for our new job. Then we have to select a translation memory and a term base. For example, if we want to use a term base we just created, we go to Project and we choose Project Settings, Term Based Use. We choose File-based multi-term term base here, which means we want to make use of the term base we created for our previous job. And then we can find the name of the term base we created for our previous job just now. Dimension, we choose it. And then we have to open a translation memory we created earlier for our previous job. We go to translation memory here. This will pop up open file based translation memory, and then we select dimension, which is a translation memory we created earlier on. Then in the translation pane, the first segment is automatically inserted from our translation memory because it is a context match. Also, we can use Control plus Alt plus Enter to confirm this segment and then move to the next segment. We can always use the buttons in the home ribbon to confirm and move to next segment directly. And then we can find that the next segment is a date. It will be translated automatically. It is because it is a recognized token. So it will be inserted automatically here. As we have mentioned before, a context match is a 100% match that has context, which means the same preceding and following segment as it is found in the translation memory, as it is a record in the document. So here, this sentence is a context match, is 100% match against our translation memory. However, we also found an example of a fuzzy match of 93%. It is found in the translation memory because I made slightly change to the sentence. So we can say a different match score here. It is automatically inserted into the target segment because it is the best match, but it is likely that we need to edit this translation before we can accept it. Because like I have explained, I deliberately change this source sentence so we can say the score is different from our previous file. We also can use auto-suggest dictionary. It is a feature linked with a machine translation provider. It can serve as a very powerful tool if we start to work with a small translation memory or term base, because it will give us real-time control over the translation process from within the edit and allow us to preview results from the machine translation provider in the translation results window before they are inserted into our target segment. We can enable translation memory and automated translation. Here, we go to options, we find auto-suggest and translation memory and auto-suggest. We tick it to enable the function translation memory and automated translation here. We can use the feature of running batch task to pre-translate project files by applying translations from translation memories and term bases before we start to translate it on our own. Here, pre-translating refers to the automatic translation of segments in the source files, and it can also generate a pre-translate files report. To run sequences of tasks on a file or some selection of the files, we go to Project View, select a project, and then go to the Files view and select the file or files we want to run batch task on. So we go to Home tab, select batch task, and then select pre-translate files here. Here you can find File, batch tasks. We select it and we select pre-translate files here from the drop-down menu. Here we choose a function task sequence, pre-translate files. And then when this procedure is finished, pre-translate files completed or be shown as a message here. Then we can find the file will be pre-translated on the basis of previous translation memory. So we don't have to start translation from scratch. There is another function of Trados Studio, which is alignment. Alignment is used when we try to create some translation memory based on the target file we can produce from our translation. It can also be used to create a corpus on the basis of the aligned files. So where to start this procedure, we go to translation memory here, and we select the function align documents here. This window will need us to choose source file, target file, and we also have to select a translation memory to do it. Select a translation memory created before. For example, I select the dimension basic translation memory, and I choose the source file and target file. And then I press finish. So you can find there is a file aligned. However, there are different lines in different colors. Green lines indicate a highest degree of alignment certainty, which means it's very certain these two are a pair. However, red lines indicate a lower degree of certainty. We have to check manually the alignment matches to make sure that they are correct matched before we can import them into the translation memory. If these segments and its translations are incorrectly matched, what can we do? First, we need to select the source doc segments and its translation. For example, on the left side, the title and its date are considered a match to one translation. Obviously, they are not correctly matched. So we select both segments and its translation. And then we disconnect this match. You can notice the lines are broken now, which means they are not connected anymore. And then we select the two segments we want to match by dragging the number of the source segment to the number of the translated segment. Then a box will appear during this procedure. When we drop the number, these two segments will be connected by a green line. We can practice procedure in our workshop tonight, how to disconnect mismatched segments and how to rematch them to the right way. So here I can find once this segment and its translation are matched, the color will be different. There will be a green line connecting them together. We can repeat the same procedure to correct other matches. Sometimes there is a need to split the segments in the translation document. For example, here, two translations are combined together. We need to split them. So we select it, and then we right-click and select split segment from the drop-down list. So this translation will be splitted. Now we can find there are green lines to connect the source document, source segment with its translation. And until the number of the source segment is the same as the number of translate segments. And once all the segments have been aligned in the correct way, we can import this alignment back to translation memory. We press import into translation memory, and we can find that there will be a piece of information showing that how many sentences in the aligned file have been added to translation memory. Okay, this is the end of today's seminar.